What's up, everyone, and welcome into episode number 548, where it is my honor and privilege to introduce a special guest joining this episode, and that is former Army baseball player Coleson Titus. How are you doing, Coleson?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to join. How's things going in the Army lifestyle? I know you've been out of West Point for a little less than a year. Are you enjoying things?
Yeah, it's good. Got down to Georgia in July. I'm going through IBOLC now. We'll wrap that up and head out to Ranger in April. So everything's good. It's nice to be out of West Point for sure and be able to have some money and do your own thing. So I'm enjoying it.
Also, probably a little bit, maybe more free time, a little bit more relaxed, or not
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily that case.
No, definitely more free time. You get to be a grown up a little. It's essentially a 9 to 5. So unless you're in the field. But when you're home and you don't got to worry about homework or practices or, whatever West Point had to offer in the afternoons is kind of just your time. So I'm enjoying it.
Good. Glad to hear that. I'm definitely really interested in how you kind of found out how you really truly headed to West Point because I know that you played high school baseball in Michigan and you don't truly see a lot of Michigan athletes go to West Point. If you look at just the rosters, there's not
Yeah.
a lot of Michigan players there. Just talk about how you kind of got started in baseball and just how you end up at Army, which I know that's exactly where your brother played baseball before going to the school.
Yep. Um, so I want to say kind of my interest peaked. I've always wanted to be in the military. Um,
Okay.
so my brother going to Army was like a great setup for me. I didn't play high school baseball in Michigan for all 4 years. I came from West Virginia to actually come play for Orchard Lake St. Mary's. My parents were moving back up, so I got an opportunity to join that team. And that was a stellar team. A ton of big names came out
Yeah.
of that team, and we did super well. But I guess my initial interest in Army was really I wanted to play baseball at a high level, but I was with competing interest in terms of joining the Army. And my brother kind of set a pretty solid path for me. He didn't make it too hard, to mix the two, like playing high level baseball as well as joining the military. So that was really it. I kind of just followed in his path. The biggest jump for me was getting my grades right. I knew I could go play baseball there, and I had some other options, but nothing too crazy. So it was really just striving um, to get that offer from West Point. But it was, yeah, nothing crazy. Just really more grinding in the classroom than I had planned
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah, because guess what? It's not easy to get into West Point. It's not easy to get into any of the academies. You basically have to, I don't want to say have to have a 4.0, but you kind of have to probably get pretty close to that. Being a great athlete obviously probably
yeah,
helps a little bit with that, but also playing at Orchard Lake St. Mary, like for at least a few years there, I believe it's still a premier high school baseball team to this day. Like you said, you're playing with some of the top athletes, baseball players in Michigan, and I know that you guys did extremely well. I think at least won one, maybe two state championships during your time, and then you specifically mentioned of obviously wanting to serve in the military, eventually getting the offer at Army. Was there any of the other academies you were really considering, or was it because your brother and just kind of the familiarity you had with Army was really the reason why you chose Army?
it was definitely a familiarity. Like I knew the coaching staff. I'd been going to Army games since 8th grade. Um, so I knew the coaching staff. It was an easy transition. It
Yeah,
also like looking at what kind of job you want to do in the military. So like baseball is obviously was like that close the close goal, but looking
yeah,
kind of down the road. I mean, if you go to the Navy and you don't get selected for that special operations pipeline, like now you're a sailor. And
yeah,
nothing against sailors, I just didn't want to be one. Same with Air Force Academy. Like if you don't get selected for that special operations pipeline, like now you're a pilot. I didn't want to be a pilot. The Army kind of provided, I could go join the infantry and then have the option to also do the special operations stuff
Yeah.
if I wanted to. So it was a little bit of like career path, but definitely, in my high school mind, it was the easiest. I didn't have to work very hard to get familiar with coaches, to get up to camps, to
Yeah.
get them out to big tournaments. So it was very kind of streamlined.
Was it kind of almost like a full circle moment for you when you got that offer from Army and saying, "Hey, we want you to come here"? Like it's something that you've been going to, like you said, you're familiar with the coaches, you're familiar with the games because obviously you've been to the games, you've been to the campus. It had to almost be kind of a little bit of a full circle moment for you that saying, "Hey, not only do I get to go to these games, I have a real possibility of being an athlete, being a student, being a West Point graduate at one point."
Yeah, it's actually funny because we lived in Michigan when I was in fifth and sixth grade, and my brother went to
Okay.
Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Um, and then we moved down to West Virginia, and it seemed kind of like my path was going to separate from my brother's. Um, and funny enough, we have the head coach at Orchard Lake St. Mary's at the time hit me up, and we knew we were coming back to Michigan. So I actually got my offer as I was moving into the dorms up at St. Mary's. So
Okay.
it was pretty funny. Like I'm coming back to St. Mary's, where I watched my brother play when I was younger, and I get that offer to have that opportunity to go play at West Point. Um, same as him. So it was full circle in multiple kind of dimensions of it. Like I'm back where he played, and
Yeah.
I finally got the opportunity to go play where he did. So it was definitely like it was an awesome moment. I was super pumped.
It was almost like it was meant to be. Like it felt like you were
Yeah,
kind of going on your own path, but then you moved back and you were like, "Hey, this is like the really kind of the start of that same path that your brother had," which is awesome.
absolutely. Yep, awesome.
So obviously, you end up making the decision to go in Army, going to West Point. It's not an easy school. It's not an easy transition to do. Talk a little bit about kind of that transition going through plebe year, what it was like when you first arrived on campus, your first experience that first day, just going through training, experiencing plebe year. Like it's a little bit of a rude awakening. I'm sure you probably knew at least some of it, but it's a little bit different knowing it than actually experiencing it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I can. My brother actually, he didn't tell me anything. He told me it's something you got to figure
Okay,
out for yourself. So I remember like
love
showing
it.
up and your buddies are like, "Yo, like your brother went here. What like to expect?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm in the same boat you are." Like he told me some things. I knew about the team. I knew about the baseball
Okay,
aspect of it. But in terms of the school, he was like, "Dude, you just gotta. That's something you're gonna figure out for yourself."
yeah,
Transitioning wise for the baseball side of things, I'll start with that. Um,
okay,
the transition from St. Mary's to Army West Point wasn't too difficult. Um, you got to think as a catcher, the biggest transition would be like talented arms. And
yeah,
I got the privilege to catch some like super studs at St. Mary's. So Brock Porter, who's now in the Rangers organization, Jake Keyser, who went to go pitch at Michigan, um, Tommy Almany, who's with Oklahoma State. Like I got to catch some super elite dudes. And then on the
yeah,
offensive side of things, I'm with Alex Mooney. I'm with Ike Irish, Nolan Schubert. So some other big names, Jack Crichton. So the transition baseball wise, like I wasn't surrounded by anything I hadn't been surrounded by before. It was more so
yeah,
just I had to get to that college level of um, playing, but it wasn't a big shock. I know some dudes go through like the shock of they're the only Division I commit on their high school team, and they show up to college and like it's like oh shit, everyone here is good. Um,
yeah.
but for me, I mean, I was the only non-Power Five guy in that lineup at St. Mary's. So like when I showed up, I was very like, it's not too bad. Outside of
Yeah.
baseball, I would say the biggest jump for me was the academic side of things. The military side of stuff,
Okay.
like plebe year is super easy. Like you keep your mouth shut, you do what you're told. It's not like there's nothing you do plebe year is hard on the military side of things. It's very much like just do what you're told. It's a very
Yeah,
simple task to complete. But the academic side of thing was definitely like a big like you know jump scare, I guess. Um,
yeah,
you just no, none of the schoolwork is super difficult, but it's so much schoolwork that you've never had to deal with. You just came off your senior year of high school where maybe you're in classes half the day. Um,
yeah.
you're just worried about getting to practice. How long can my nap be before I have to go back and play a game? Like you're worried about school's not at the forefront of your mind. So
Oh yeah.
definitely a big jump academically, just in terms of volume. I wasn't really prepared for it, and they even put me in like I had the dumb kids schedule. Like I showed up and they're like, "Hey, listen, we looked at your ACT. You're only gonna have 16 credit hours. Your plebe fall, which is abnormal there. Normally you start at 18 and a half. Some kids had 20. Um,
Okay.
so you start with like a heavy load, and it gets a little heavier your sophomore year and then eases off. But they even they were like, listen, dude, I don't think you will be successful if we give you all those classes. So I had a light schedule my plebe year, and I still struggled. It was tough just adjusting to trying to kind of juggle sports and athletics. But
Yeah.
um, outside of that, man, plebe year is just kind of just do what you're told, work hard, baseball wise, and it wasn't anything too crazy, but academics was definitely a big jump for me specifically.
It had to be nice to have a little bit of an easier kind of transition to like the baseball side of things because baseball was probably a little bit of like escape from kind of like
Yeah.
day in day out things. Like that's what you're supposed to do. That's like you're there to play baseball. Obviously you're more than just a baseball player there, but like that's just like quote unquote like probably your fun time is to go to practice, do something that you love. And I'm sure that was a huge part that kind of made it a little bit easier dealing with all the other stuff that obviously is stressful. Like you talked about kind of like your day to day thing. I definitely want to kind of get into like what a day to day would look like at West Point, but like it's kind of your great escape a little bit. And then obviously you have dinner, you have schoolwork afterwards. I know there's very regiment days at West Point. Like you probably didn't get very much free time whatsoever, but the little bit that you did was probably playing baseball.
Yeah, no, for sure, and specifically with the guys on the team, that's what made it the escape. We had like it was a super tight team for all 4 years, and every teammate I've ever had there has been like a good dude,
Yeah.
cares about you and your success. So they actually probably were the main reason that transition was so easy. Um,
Okay.
and we had like a clubhouse equivalent. So like I would spend plebe year, I would spend 3:30 till 9:30, 10 down at the clubhouse doing homework with guys,
Yeah.
hanging out, watching a movie, whatever it may be. But it was definitely an escape. You could kind of get away from the West Point stuff down there, and then you also had older guys that could kind of mentor you along the way and help you transition from kind of that high school mindset to doing West Point things. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it obviously took you a little bit of time, but like after probably plebe year, it got a little bit easier, kind of getting a little bit of a routine. Obviously, classes probably didn't get easier. I know you said kind of towards your junior, senior year, maybe they back off on credits a little bit more, but like it's kind of like you really have to go through like that first 2 years to truly say, like, hey, like, is this something one I want to do? And two, like, can I do this? Right? Because I think that's truly what from talking with like people that have gone to West Point, like I haven't talked to very many people, but like it's one of those things where like they try to kind of like weed you out a little bit, but they're not going to give you stuff that you can't handle to do. Like
absolutely.
it's about like figuring out like pushing you to get better, pushing you become the person that they want you to become, a person to be better than who you were when you stepped in. But it's just about pushing you and saying, hey, is this something I want to do? And obviously after your second year going into your third year, that's when you sign a contract saying, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to serve in the military. I want to stay at West Point. But it's just one of those things that, like, it's just difficult, but it never gets easier. But, like, the first 2 years seem like it's pretty much of a grind for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely that sophomore year is academically the worst.
Yeah.
And then plebe year, you're just kind of trying to figure it all out. So those first 2 years, yeah, definitely are heavier than your last two for sure.
So talk a little bit about like what a day to day would look like for
Yeah.
you as an athlete, or because everyone has a different schedule, right? But I know even if you're not an athlete, you still have to do like a club sport or something like that. So it's similar, but like it's different.
Yeah. Um, so generally, we'll start with out of season because the in season are on the baseball side of things. It gets super weird with your
Okay.
day to day. But out of season, you're looking at like a 6:30 wake up if you're me because I like wasn't super worried about like getting dressed super slow or I didn't take a shower in the morning. Like I just got up, threw my stuff on. So it's
Yeah.
6:30 wake up. You get out there to formation. It's essentially like they just take accountability, make sure everyone's there. You head on to breakfast. Breakfast for athletes is with your team.
Okay.
So you eat you eat 2 meals a day with your team. It's honestly, I would say it's probably one of my most like I love that part of the day. You're with
Yeah.
all the guys. You just get to kind of mess around and do have some fun. There was really no rules, so you had that breakfast with the team, and then you'd start classes at 7:40. You'd be in class till noon, and
Okay.
then you have that lunch with your teammates again. Again, great time. Like I can't like stress it enough how much fun I had at lunches.
Yeah.
Um, and then generally that would end. And then at 1 you would start classes again. You go from 1 to 3:30. 3:30 would end. Your class day is over. Every now and then you have a brief right after lunch. So you'd go from lunch to like some sort of brief or training. And
Okay.
then you go back to your classes. 3:30 hits. It's generally a lift. So we'd go do a team lift.
Yeah.
After the team lift, we'd move right into, generally like a 2 hour practice, maybe 3 hour, depending what the coach had planned, but 2 to 3 hour practice. You get back to your room, around 7:30, 8:30.
Okay.
Do some homework, play some video games. If you got nothing going on, you stay down in the team room, watch a movie with the guys. Um, but you try to knock out a little bit of homework. And then I was super weird about my sleep while I was there. So, like, I never stayed up past 10.
Yeah.
If the homework didn't get done, then it didn't get done. Like, I just wasn't turning it in. So, and my
Yeah.
grades reflected that. I wasn't super stellar in the academic world. But yeah, I was big on getting to bed at 10. Um, but yeah, that's a general day.
Okay.
Then it was pretty similar in season, except early in the season you're traveling on a Thursday, you play Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yeah.
and then you travel on Monday. So you really only went to classes Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay.
Um, so early in the season, it was really, really chill. And you had tutors on the road with you. They're called officer representatives. It's like, kind of the liaison between the military side of things and the baseball side of things that travel with you.
Yeah.
And they're normally a department head or, an instructor in a certain department. So those were like your tutors. They'd administer tests and stuff
Okay.
like that on the weekends. But yeah, I would say that's like a pretty general schedule that you live out, 75% of the time while you're there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sounds like in season is a little bit more fun, but you still have the academic side of things that you probably still have to go through as well, which it might make it a little bit more challenging because obviously
Yeah.
you're traveling, obviously you have the representatives with you, you have the people that will help you throughout the season, but at the end of the day, like you still need to be able to compete, you still need to be mentally and physically locked in. How were you able to do that as a catcher when you have kind of the schedule that you did? Because it truly takes a lot to not only mentally like lock in, but like physically, like you have to make sure that you're physically feeling good because of just how physically draining a catcher can be.
Yeah, I mean, I got super lucky. I know it's a big thing right now in the recruiting world to want to show up to your college and play immediately. But
Yeah.
I almost found it a blessing that my plebe year, I was just a bullpen guy. I think I only had 7 starts my freshman year. I got some at bats, but it wasn't anything crazy. So I really got to
Okay.
dial in kind of a routine in like a low stakes environment. Um, what's the balance between like getting your homework done versus going to bed early to prep for the game the next day? What's the
Yeah.
balance of studying for a test you have when you get back versus putting on a movie because you just played 9 innings or caught bullpens for 9 innings. So I actually really enjoyed having that freshman year, that plebe year, to kind
Okay.
of figure that out. Um, some guys want to get in and play immediately, and obviously I wanted to play, but looking
Yeah.
back, it was kind of a blessing to have that kind of grace period, where it's like a very low risk, um, kind of trial run for like what my routine was on game days, what my routine was during a week, where you're at home. So it was nice, but that was really where I figured it out, that balance um, between like baseball and getting all the
Yeah.
other stuff done. So
So then when you got the opportunity more of your junior senior year, when you played more, was selected captain your senior year. I definitely want to talk a little bit about what that meant to you, kind of being a captain at Army. Your junior and senior year, obviously, like I said, you just played more, but also I know your senior year, you still caught a little bit, but you also played third as well. How difficult was it kind of going from just solely kind of like catcher DH type to now playing third a little bit more, especially because like that wasn't something you played a whole ton prior to kind of your junior senior year?
yeah, I mean, it's a super fun experience. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of difficult, and you didn't want to put yourself in a spot where you're making the team worse. I was thrown over there because we had a super stud junior coming up, um,
Yeah.
who was killing it behind the plate, and then our third baseman dislocated his shoulder.
Okay.
So I guess kind of the fix to that to keep me in the lineup at the time was to put me at third base and, hope I wasn't too much of a liability. But it was fun
Yeah.
after catching I've been catching since I was 10. And I played a little bit of second base my freshman year of high school. Um,
Okay.
but being able to learn a new position at a high level, it kind of like re-sparks, that kind of like excitement to play the game. Like practice was something new for me. Like I'd never
Yeah.
been with the infielders for practice. Um, so it definitely like reignited a little bit of like excitement to
Yeah.
show up and you learn because you're learning something new every day. Like it was difficult for sure. I wasn't the cleanest, fielder over there. Um, but our coach Mike Cole eventually told me, he's like, listen, dude, we just need, if the ball's hit at you, we need you to just make sure it doesn't get past you, and then you pick it up and throw it. And so
Yeah.
simplifying a position like third, um, like that, it made it way easier for me. Because if you get into all the technicalities and footwork, and you'll run yourself into the ground with how complex it can get, especially at that level.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so simplifying it down to like, listen, dude, your job is to stop the ball and then throw it across the infield. And if you do that at an okay level, we'll be happy with it. It took a little bit of the pressure off,
Yeah.
and then allowed me to develop, those technical skills as well, because you want to be able to do it at a higher level. Um, so yeah, I had a ton of fun with it. I thought it was great. Some of my teammates will clown me because yeah, I had some brick hands there for a while. Um, but it was something fun to
Yeah.
learn, and I had to learn it relatively quickly because that happened, first weekend of the season where I made that move over. But it was good. I really did enjoy it. And it was difficult. I mean, third
Yeah.
base isn't a fun position to play. When you're expecting a bunt and a dude turns on a ball and you're kind of just, stuck on the in between. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would overall categorize it as it was a great time, a good learning experience. And I had like a different appreciation for other positions that I hadn't had before because I was a catcher only basically up to that point.
Yeah. Is it truly the hot corner though? Is that quote unquote sane name? Is that pretty accurate for your experience?
I mean, you definitely get some balls turned on. Um,
Okay.
you get some guys that'll, hit some balls hard at you, but at that level, balls are being hit so hard, and if it's not directly at you, um, at
Yeah.
least I didn't fault it. I got a little bit of grace because they knew I wasn't super clean over there. I got a little bit of grace, if it was to my left or right. Um, but it could be considered a hot corner.
Yeah.
First base scares me more, honestly.
Really?
Um, you you
Why?
get big lefties coming up. Um, big lefties scare me a little more than big righties for some
Okay.
reason. Um, and you had a little bit more time at least over there, so I could normally give myself a little bit of depth off that bag, and
Yeah.
I could make up with it, with my arm. But yeah, at first, I don't know, man, because you got to still be able to get to that bag to catch a
Yeah.
ball coming from anywhere. At third, I could play. There were sometimes like my heels are on the grass, and I just, if a ball's hit hard, I have the time, to collect myself and make a good throw. But yeah, definitely
Exactly.
sometimes it's the hot corner, but
But also, you probably got a little bit more practice at BP than you would have prior if you were solely a catcher, though.
yeah, no, I definitely did. I mean, I got plenty of BP time, because you're not catching bullpens. You're not worried about getting that extra work in defensively in terms of a catcher.
Yeah.
You're on like a normal schedule for a baseball player. Catchers are kind of on their own thing, but definitely some more BP,
Yeah.
um, which was nice. That's always more fun.
How do you think catcher kind of helped you with third? Because for a lot of catchers, I think there's going to be a lot of people that will say that catcher is probably one of the toughest, if not the toughest position. You really can't be afraid of the ball. You have to be willing to block the ball. You have to have some sort of different kind of like mindset when you play that. Did that really kind of help you at third a little bit? Obviously, I know you don't have like all the gear on third that you'd have a catcher, stuff like that. So you obviously don't have that, but it had to kind of have a little bit of help, kind of having a little bit of like that mentality of like not being afraid of the ball, that mentality of being willing to kind of put your body on the line.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of it, especially when your hands aren't super clean. You at least got to be tough. Um, Yeah, I would say like the fact that I wasn't too scared to get hit by the ball helped me tremendously. And then
Yeah,
also, something a lot of people don't think about, but the short arm action at third is nice because it gives you time to, at least get rid of the ball if your arm strength isn't up to par. But yeah, I mean, being able to put down a knee for a ball you can't read the hop on, or you get a wonky bounce and just being able to kind of shoot a shoulder to knock it down helped tremendously. If I didn't have that kind of catching mentality over there, I'd have really struggled severely. um
yeah,
but it definitely was a jump without the gear, because you put on that gear, most catchers know,
yeah,
you put on the gear, you feel invincible. um and you feel a little naked over at third. I will say it took me probably a week or two to feel a little better over there, but there's a second where you're like, man, I don't know about this, no mask
yeah,
thing. If I get hit in the face, it's not going to be fun. But it
yeah,
definitely, yeah, for sure translates in terms of the toughness that it requires um, to be over there if you're not very technically sound. I know some dudes that have played
yeah,
over there that are technically sound. If your hands are good and your feet are good, you don't have to worry about ever getting hit by the ball because
yeah.
you know how to play the position. But for guys transferring over, it's a huge confidence booster over there that at least I can put a body in front of it and knock a ball down.
Exactly. And like you specifically mentioned, there's a little bit of like a kind of mindset switch that happens, like especially at catcher when you step on the field, like you truly have to like lock in, like you just have to have a little bit like a switch that you're like, okay, like it's now to play baseball. And that's
Yeah.
obviously a huge part of it as well.
Yep.
So I do know you pointed out the fact that like early on, kind of when you started making the transition to third, some of your teammates made a little bit of like fun of you for like having brick hands and stuff like that. But that's obviously like part of like being a part of a team. being
Yeah.
connected as a team, having fun. Talk a little bit about the brotherhood that you guys had at Army and just how different it is. Because obviously, like when you graduated, it was kind of towards the beginning part of like the transfer portal, right? Like there's
Yeah.
NIL, transfer portal, all that kind of stuff. You see people moving from school to school to school to school to school. You see all these NIL deals. It's like I've had people transfer and there's good reasons for it. There's not good reasons for it, but that's
Yeah.
just not the case at Army. Like there's a true
No.
brotherhood when it comes to the academies. I know one thing that really is important is that brotherhood to be connected for those 4 years.
Yeah. It's, you get the majority of, college teams in any sport, preach the brotherhood, and, they love giving that, oh, this is a brotherhood. Um,
Yeah,
And I know if any of my teammates are going to listen, they're going to know, because we've heard this a million times. And, you're talking to recruits, and it's a real thing. Like, that's your family while you're there. Um, there's like, you don't have other buddies, like your guys. You spend all your time
yeah,
with your teammates. And then it's also, there's a bit of like, I'm blanking on the phrase, but like joint struggle that you go through. Like, everyone's getting,
yeah,
their ass kicked in this class. Everyone has to go do this military training, or, everyone didn't get any sleep last night. So there's a little bit of a tighter bond with that. And then I think an overarching thing that, we don't talk a lot about on the team, because, we're worried about baseball, but everyone is there for a bigger reason than baseball.
yeah,
And it kind of grounds you in terms of like, we're all going to go through, some pretty stupid stuff while we're here, and it's going to kind of suck the entire time you're here.
yeah,
But all of you are going through it, and you also are all doing it for, a little bit of a bigger purpose. I
yeah.
know in my 4 years, we only had one guy transfer. Um, and we were actually happy he transferred. He's with the Red Sox now, Connolly Early.
Okay,
He pitched in the World Series, but like, he transferred my sophomore year, and it was like best decision he ever made. But we had a ton of guys that are playing pro ball now that had the opportunity to leave. Derek Berg, Sam Ruda, Tanner
yeah,
Gresham, Braden Galinsky. Like, we had a big gaggle of guys in the class above me that had an opportunity to leave, and they decided to just like stick it out, because they didn't want to leave like that team.
yeah,
Um, I think us and Navy were we were the only teams in college baseball that didn't have any transfers for 2024, 2025. Um, those years playing, we were the only two teams in the country that didn't have any. And we had plenty of guys that had plenty of other offers. In the class below me, there's Chris Marr and Billy Parker, like two studs that if and Andrew Berg, actually Derek Berg's little brother. If
okay,
those three guys wanted to pick up and go play ball anywhere else, like, they had legit options. But they didn't want to leave the team, and they
yeah,
ultimately have goals to, serve the country, and, do something a little bigger than they were originally expecting to when they signed up to play baseball. So yeah, the team super tight, and honestly, that's, you don't see that in college baseball
no,
anymore. I have a buddy playing for an SEC school right now, and he just transferred in. And he's like, I'm like, how tight are you guys? And he's like, dude, like, we barely know each other. He's like, you
yeah,
got buddies of twos and threes. Um, but you don't have like a full team. You got a bunch of small groups of guys that, play a sport for a purpose. Um,
yeah,
so it's kind of sad, but, it was nice to be a part of a team like that, where we were super tight. Everything we did it together. Um, but yeah, I loved it. It was one of my favorite parts. The guys at West Point on that team, were like the best part of my 4 years there, like beyond anything else that I did. So
yeah, because you guys kind of have to like quote unquote like embrace the suck because you have times where it's not going to be necessarily the most fun where you're going to go through difficult things and that obviously makes you closer to get together and then obviously the fact that you're doing something bigger than yourself as well outside of college like you truly have to be there, wanting to be there, wanting to do something greater than yourself, wanting to be an officer in the military. Like that's kind of like the end goal is to get that opportunity to do that. Obviously, like you said, there's athletes at Army, there's athletes at Navy, there's athletes at any of the academies that have gotten opportunities to play professionally. But then even after that, they still have to do their 5 years afterwards. Like there's still that added on part of it, but you're there because you want to be there. You're there because you want to connect. You're there because you want to do something greater. And I think that's also a big reason why Army, the other academies have continued to be competitive is because of the brotherhood, because of that connection with everyone, because you have again the landscape of NAL, the transfer portal.
Hmm.
Anyone can leave at any time. And
Right.
you even have quote unquote professional basketball players trying to come back to college. I won't get into that on this episode. But do you think that's truly kind of what has made the academy stay competitive? And in my opinion, I think that should be their greatest selling point is that when you come here, we're going to put effort into you. We're
Yeah.
going to develop you. We
Yeah.
want you to be here. We want you to become leaders. Like that's what it is. And obviously there's a little bit of a scary part of like going into unknown when you go into an academy. But for a lot of people, I feel like it's kind of the right way of doing it for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you get way more development being with the same coaching staff, being with the same guys. So you definitely are getting developed a little more than you would at your average, your average school. But the other thing is the focus on winning.
Yeah.
Like when you don't have any, skin in the game, you're not making any money. Um, you're
Yeah.
just playing for fun. Like you're really like you care about winning a whole lot more. And
Yeah.
I have buddies playing all over the country, and like you ask how much do you guys care about winning, and it's like, listen, winning's nice, but like I'm here to go play pro ball. And so it's
Yeah.
turned into, I think, a little bit less competitive. Um, Whereas like
Agreed.
all we care about is winning. Like that's our number
Yeah.
one goal is to go compete in a regional and have the opportunity to go like play it on a big stage because it's the only thing like that it has to offer us, besides like the
Yeah.
friends, the teammates. There's no like we're not getting any there's no advantage for playing for this team except for we want to play for a winning team.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the biggest thing that sets us apart. Um, yeah.
And speaking of winning, you did that quite a bit at Army. I know you've won several conference championships, went to a college baseball tournament. What were those experiences like, and just how cool was it getting to play against the best in the country, especially in the tournament? Like you're playing some of the best players, you're playing some of the best teams, and then you also probably got a couple of rings from your conference championships as well. And I'm sure there'll probably be a point in like 10, 15, 20 years, so they'll be like, oh, it's 25th anniversary of this team winning a conference championship or this team going to the NCAA tournament, and then you're back at West Point celebrating that.
Yeah. It was super cool. Army gets we do a great job scheduling. At least the coaches while I was there did a great job of getting us early in the season in front of some big teams. So it wasn't just the regionals we got to play against the best in the country. I know like my freshman year we played Vanderbilt, TCU. Um, this year they're opening up with Clemson in South Carolina. We got to play like some super big
Yeah,
name teams and a lot of good competitors. But yeah, the regionals were awesome. I wish we would have won a few more games in them, obviously. But it is
yeah,
nice to get into those like I like we call them the big boy atmospheres, like your SEC atmospheres, your like Southern Miss was amazing. My freshman year, it was incredible.
yeah,
Georgia was a crazy experience. Um, but yeah, the winning has benefits, and it's get to go play in cooler stadiums with bigger crowds and nicer facilities. And when you play
yeah,
Northeast baseball, and most guys understand this, I would say outside of probably UConn, you're not used to. 2,000 people showing up on a midweek to come watch you play and,
Exactly.
30-degree weather. So they were super cool. And then, on the winning side of things, like we always had, a good team put together and we worked super hard and we always had like a big goal in mind. And my senior year, um, we didn't win for the first time in 7 years. So I'd say, I'll take a little accountability. I dropped the ball a little on that one. And us as a senior class, but the years prior to that, were awesome. And, playing on the big stage is nothing like it.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite memories will be at the regionals. So yeah, it's awesome. And Army does get, we get a little bit of leeway with playing some big teams because, in the South they want to do their military appreciation weekend.
Yeah.
So who better to play than bring Army and Navy or Army and Air Force in and play them for a 3-game series. So we
Exactly.
definitely got the opportunity to play some super stellar teams and be in that environment throughout my 4 years. So it was awesome. It makes the game, the game's way more fun when you don't have 15 people in the crowd and it's not, 20 degrees. So I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I think it's like if you asked anyone on our team, like those are some of the best memories, is being at those regionals or playing in those big games. So
Yeah, SEC baseball, there's just something different about SEC baseball. Like Tennessee when they went on the run to win a national championship,
yeah.
Ole Miss when they did, like no one saw that coming. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Northeast, Midwest baseball, obviously you have like the weather. You obviously probably played your first 10, 15, 20 games on the road. You kind of have to truly love baseball if you want to play kind of up here, but it's one of
Yeah.
those things of like you get those cool opportunities to travel, you get your cool opportunities just to go to West Point in general. So for you, what was the coolest opportunity, the coolest experience you had playing baseball, and then maybe your coolest experience you had at the West Point side of things?
Um, Coolest opportunity baseball wise, Georgia was pretty awesome.
Okay.
Getting to play them on like a big stage was super awesome for us. I know like I got lucky. I got a little lucky, but I got to hit a home run there. Guessed right on the right pitch and got my barrel out in front. But that was a super cool moment and that was a super tight game. And then I'll also say playing at Arkansas, it's so funny like 2,000 people to us is like mind boggling, and we
Yeah.
show up to play Arkansas on like a Tuesday on a random week in, February, I think. And like there's 3,000 people there on a Tuesday. So in the stadium, I mean, it's unbelievable there. Those were really cool opportunities. And then I'm trying to think of some other awesome ones. Championship games, like Patriot League championship games, were also really cool. Um, Normally you had task force from like an army unit coming
Okay.
in to like do our summer training. So you'd look up in the stands, and it would be 100 dudes
Yeah.
from the 82nd Airborne, all in ACUs, like going nuts, for
Yeah.
our team. A bunch of cadets would come out to those games. You normally have all of your families are there. Um, so those were like super, and you're done with the school year, so you're not worried about school. Like you're only worried about baseball.
Yeah.
Those championship games were always super fun, especially at home. I think we played our first three at home, and then my senior year was away. But those 3 years, home championship series are like they're unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just because the support that you're not used to getting at those games, like everyone packs the stands, everyone's done with school, so everyone shows out and is there to watch the games. And it's nice weather for the first time in a while generally those weekends. So
Yeah. Typically.
um yeah, I would say home championship series or the Georgia regional, and then Arkansas midweek were some super super cool atmospheres to play in.
Yeah, sometimes it's almost like, what are these people doing on a random Tuesday in the middle
Yeah.
of the day? Like why are they here? Like, sure,
Yeah.
shouldn't you be someplace else? But
Do you
like,
have a
obviously, it's
job?
just
Yeah.
kind of different. Yeah, I was just gonna say, do you have a job? Do you have something else to do? But again, those are the really cool opportunities. Those are the atmospheres that truly make college baseball what it is.
Yep.
So I want to talk about one other cool experience, and that is something that I mentioned a little bit earlier that I'm getting to. I should have probably got into this much earlier than this, but your senior year, you were selected a captain.
Yeah.
What kind of honor did that mean to you to be not only a senior, but captain of a team that truly is full of future and current leaders?
Yeah, it was an awesome experience. And I'm lucky that the coaches put some trust in me, to have that position. But it's really simple. Like when you have a bunch of leaders on a team, you're almost just a figurehead. You're a face. It's
Yeah,
not it's not super. It's not difficult. You don't have a ton of knuckleheads, and I wasn't really. I was more so on like I was the only senior captain. We had two juniors that were captains my senior
okay.
year, um, and they were awesome too. But it's a cool opportunity, and you get to meet some cool people. I know we got to go to a few meetings with some like Medal of Honor recipients as like
Oh, that's
captains of the
awesome.
team, um, and you get to interact with recruits on a different level. And then you get to be like kind of that guy to like push some guys in the weight room. I know that was like a big one of my big focuses as a
Yeah,
captain was making sure everyone's getting after it in the weight room during the off season. But yeah, it was awesome. I mean, you can't describe it more than that. Like being surrounded by, and also like you're surrounded by a bunch of good dudes too. So you don't like there's no knuckleheads to deal with at
yeah,
that school. Like you have a bunch of just good guys that want to work hard, and get after it. And then I like my other two captains, Chris Barr and Billy Parker, were awesome too.
yeah,
Um, and then being that liaison between coaches, you're able to like stick your neck out for your guys sometimes, and you're also able to like help your coaches, like when they can't get a point across, you're able to kind of translate for that for them.
yeah,
But it was an amazing experience, and I learned, funny enough, West Point's a big like leadership school. I learned more being a captain of the team than I did anything over on like the cadet side of things.
yeah,
I would say that was my biggest leadership, learning moment that I can bring into the Army was dealing with the team and, kind of attempting to lead the right way with those guys. You learn a lot of lessons doing it the wrong way than you do
yeah,
the right way. So, but yeah, I
yeah.
loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like sometimes you need like hands-on like leadership, or maybe you need to
Yeah.
do it through something that you love to do, and that's playing baseball, being a captain on a baseball team. Sometimes those are the things that truly kind of equate to obviously like what you do now. Like it's
Yeah.
different like trying to like learn in the classroom. Obviously there's important things that you learn in the classroom. I'm sure there's probably some things that you learned in the classroom that you still kind of use now, still kind of know, but truly about the experience, about being a captain on the team that truly can help you take that next step, or truly like help you learn more than anything you would ever learn in the classroom, which I'm sure you probably learned a lot at West Point in the classroom, but it's again about the experience rather than necessarily the complete books behind of everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but no, awesome, man. I really really appreciate you kind of coming on and talking a little bit about your West Point, a little bit about your Army experience. It sounds like it's been an incredible experience, and I really want to wrap up with this one last thing. I know at the beginning I mentioned that you've been out of West Point for a little less than a year.
Yeah.
What are some lessons that you are currently using in your career as an officer that you not only learned through baseball, but during your time at West Point? How did West Point truly shape you into the person that you are today?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's actually funny. I was just having this conversation with some of my buddies down here in Georgia. Um, West Point does a really good job of putting a bunch of like high performers in one area, and then making it a competition. Some people don't
Yeah,
like that about West Point, but my biggest lesson learned is like surround yourself by high performers. because it's only gonna make you get better. Our natural inclination is to compete and and win. And I would
Yeah.
say that's the lesson I took away from baseball. One of the biggest lessons is like you always want to be a winner. Winning is like important and it matters.
Yeah.
And then you surround yourself by a bunch of dudes that are better than you. So you're constantly chasing, you're constantly trying to get better.
Yeah.
That's a huge one that I've taken away from West Point, and being a part of that Army baseball team. And then the next one is being a good person. um
Yeah.
West Point does a super like deliberate job of trying to teach character and um like how to live the right way. um
Yeah.
and and I don't like the formality of it, but the overall arching idea is just be a good person and be like normal.
Yeah.
And if you do those two things, like, you're gonna be successful. Because I would say outside of the military, and even in some circles within the military, like, finding a bunch of really good guys or good girls are like, it's not, they're not frequent flyers these days.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
surrounding yourself by people who are just good people, and they care about other humans, and they want to do the right thing, and take care of like whoever they're in charge of, or the people that surround them. I would say that's the biggest things, like, surround yourself by high performers, and then also like be a good human being. Don't be selfish. um
Yeah.
those are the two lessons that I've been able to really apply so far in like my Army careers. Oh, and then work hard, like,
Oh yeah.
but that, again, that comes naturally with surrounding yourself by high performers and wanting to win. Like, if you want to
Yeah.
win and you're surrounded by winners, you're gonna work hard to catch those guys.
Yeah.
um but those are the two main things: be normal, be nice, and have a good group of human beings around you. Um, but yeah, I'd say those are my biggest lessons learned that I'm able to translate, from West Point to like the actual Army, and
Yeah.
using them in day to day life.
Yeah, you want to surround yourself with the right people. You want to surround the people with that really truly care about you. You want to be surrounded by the people like you specifically said that will push you to be better. But then there's also probably the times that you like mess around, have fun with each
Yeah,
other. It's
yeah,
just about making sure that kind of balance is there, but wanting to continue to just push each other, be competitive, win in life. And I truly think that's exactly what you do. And I truly think obviously, your career at West Point was great. Your career at the baseball team was great as well. Obviously, I know your senior year fell a little bit short of your goal, but you learn lessons from
yeah,
those things. And obviously, it seems like you've learned a ton of lessons. And I should have said this earlier. I'm sorry that I'm saying this at the end, but thank you for your service. I really truly appreciate it. I also really truly appreciate you joining, man. It's been a ton of fun. I would love to have you on longer.
yeah,
I know how busy you are. Maybe we can have you back on
yeah.
in the future. But I truly do really appreciate you, man. It's been a ton of fun. Hope this was worth your time. Hopefully you had fun, and hopefully we can either have you back on, stay in contact, or
Yeah.
if not, I know you're going to be doing great things in the Army as an officer and for the rest of your life too.
Absolutely, dude. I really appreciate you having me on. It was fun talking about it, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that is a wrap to episode number 548. Thank you again to Coleson for joining, and tune in to the next episode.